Hey, thanks, Shane. And pictures are worth 1,000 words on this, so I'm going to show a screen. So, as Shane was mentioning, RTG provides a driver that links directly to your COBOL runtime as is today. And what we do is we change your architecture over to moving your files underneath our server. So it's really a very straightforward, very easy process. Most customers do it within a day and having a proof of concept running. And I'm going to do that here with you with an application that we've got. I've got a small COBOL application here. I don't have the source code to it, so I'm just working with the Accu modules and the runtime itself. And I'm going to show you real quickly how to take a vision file out from under the Accu COBOL runtime, convert it to an RTG file, and we will then run that under our server process, the same application. We're going to link that table to SQL and then view that table through some tools. I can view that table through our Explorer tool that we have, as well as Microsoft Excel, just linking it through an ODBC driver. So a couple of things I wanted to point out. One is here's our RTG package up here. This is what it looks like when you're on disk. And again, we have a drivers folder with all the drivers that Shane just mentioned. We're going to be using the Accu COBOL driver. We have a server process. That's a separate process that does run. It's independent. The drivers are all client drivers, so we're actually changing our application to a client-based application, which gives it a lot of power and flexibility by having server control. That's that transaction control and all the benefits that you get with a real database server. And then we have tools to work with that, including the SQL Explorer tools. You'll see me kind of bounce around a few utilities. They're just linked up here. I've got them all just some convenience here, and user local bin, some symlinks all set up. The other thing I wanted to show real quickly that kind of makes this all work, we'll just drop into the demo real fast. I've got a little start script I just want to show you real quick too. With Accu COBOL, to change the file handler at runtime, they have a nice little underbar host, and you set your file name underbar host and you point it to the file handler that you want to use. By default, that's Vision. So I can simply pass in on this little script. We can run this as start. If I run it with no options, it's Vision. If I run it with c-tree, we'll use the RTG package that we have. So I'm going to run it without first, just to show you some data. And this is just going to be the vendors table. So it's just a little CRM application. It's called Passport. PBS is kind of the shortcut to it. When we look at the vendor data, this is using the Vision file system. So this is just some tables or some records under the vendors table. We're going to switch now out of here real quick. That table is located in the accounts payable folder for the vendors under company 00. And if we look inside there, do that a little bit different there, we can see the vinfill dat file. So we want to take that vendors file, we want to move that over to RTG. So what does that entail? The first thing we're going to do is all these files we happen to have the XFDs for. That's not a blocker if you don't have them. We have utilities and ways to get those directly from your source code if needed. This particular application packages the XFDs, and we can just use those. Of course, the XFDs, for those that aren't familiar with an XFD, it's really just an extended file definition. It's based on your FDs out of your COBOL table definitions. There's an extended definition of those with kind of giving us the type that it is, character, numeric, comp3, date values. And we can take this and transform that then. And so we've got utilities that can read that. So what we can do is ctutil. I'm going to use a different version of it today just because this is a development box for various reasons. We're going to make a blank file. We're going to put it in a folder called AP00. We're going to call it vinfill00, just like the original. And we're going to use the XFD file for vinfill XFD. And we just created that. Where did that go? I actually have, because this is a client-server architecture and all the utilities that we're working with are client-based, we have to tell the runtime now as a client where to go to the server, where on the network is it located. That can be anywhere on any network. If you look at that, I'm just going to cut that out. I have a file up here in user local bin, or I'm sorry, user local etc, c-tree.conf. We store all of our central configurations in a single file that the runtime can read. Our driver looks for this file at runtime. Just a few things to point out. Here's my server network location. It's got a name and a address on the network. Credentials for security, so we're using our default administrator credentials here, nothing special. And then some rules to map where this file goes. So I don't want the file going back in its original location because I'm going to remove that original file to prove to you that we're not using it here in a second. I'm moving that file here into a special data directory under my application. And then a couple of different rules here just for different handling of that based on how I'm accessing the file. So if I look in that folder, that's actually a directory up here in my data folder. You'll see there's an APOO there. And you look in there and there's my new file. You can see the date there. I just created that a few minutes ago, March 1. That's where that file is at. So now if I start my application, I'm going to run it through c-tree, through the RTG driver that's linked up against our Accu. I skipped the step where I linked the code. That's actually a very minor compile to do with Accu COBOL. We give you the C library to do that, and you just run the make in your Accu COBOL distribution, and it actually builds the runtime for you with our library linked directly into it. That's already done. I'm not going to go through that step. We're going to come into the application one more time here and look at this file. And what you're going to notice is when I kind of browse through the file, we have a file, but we have no data. So what we've done is we've created a blank file, and we need to get that original data now moved over. So how do we do that? We're going to drop into the APOO folder here. Remember, this is our Vision file. Vision has its own set of utilities, vutil. We're going to unload this data out of vinfill dat, and we're going to put that into vinfill.dump. And we just unloaded a multiple records. Now we need to move that data over to our RTG table. Again, our ctUtil utility has that ability, and we can load, we're going to load AP00, that file that we just created, fill and we're going to load that dump data. And again, this utility, the ctUtil that I'm running is an RTG utility, and it's reading that c-tree comp file. It's in my environment variables out there. I've just pointed it to it. So it knows how to get to the server, knows how to log into the server, and it knows what file to work with under the server. It's passing all the files and that mappings that we talked about. So there we go. And if we go back up here, I'll show you that file again. You can see we just touched that file. So you can see that, you know, the timestamp has changed a few minutes later. So we've touched it. So now if I run start PBS with c-tree, we will see our new data. We'll go company 0, log in, and now as I go through this file, here's our data under RTG. This is running through a client-server model now. That was the original data that we moved and brought over. So that's interesting and that's nice. It does bring you a lot of data integrity. It brings you a lot of benefits having that data under there. But we want to do more with that. We want to see that data under SQL. So we have some utilities here. We have a browser-based utility. It's currently connected up to my remote machine. I'm coming in from my laptop or my desktop here in the office to my remote machine in the development labs. I'll bring up our SQL Explorer tool. I'm going to bring up the correct port. I've got it running on port 6603 for my SQL engine, and I'm going to put this into a passport database. This should connect. And you'll see here, I have no tables under my passport database. So what do we need to do? We're going to exit out of here. And we're going to run ctutil one more time. And this time we're going to do a sequelize operation. We're going to tell RTG to link this table to our database engine as a SQL table. What I am not doing is I am not duplicating the data. I am not making a copy of the data. I am not transforming this to Microsoft SQL or something like that. All we're doing is taking the data that we have, APOO, then fill 00. I'm going to use the XFD definitions to create the SQL system table entries. We do all this behind the scenes for you. So we're going to do XFD, then fill XFD. We're going to do that on the passport database. We want to link that to that database under our server engine. You can have multiple databases, of course. And we're going to apply some rules to it. I'm not going to really get into the rules so much, but these allow transformation of specifying specific data types, how to handle nulls in the COBOL data, how to handle invalid data, and how we should handle that at the SQL layer. So we've got some rules defined on that. They're very intricate. They're very complex if you need be, very simple if not. There's a couple of fields in this table that we like to have a couple of rules on. So we will do that. Etc xdd rules, and we just sequelize that table. Let's show here. We didn't have a table before. When I hit refresh, we have a venfill table. Now I have records that can be viewed in this table. So here's the data out of that table as we can see them in the application. I'll start that back up again. We'll come in as c-tree again. And just to show that it's the same data, and when we get to the first screen here, we can see where to fi is the name. This is just some scrambled data we created and loaded into these tables. It's got some information here. So what can we do with it in SQL? Well, great. One of the number one things people like to do is bring that over to the desktop on their spreadsheets. So I have an ODBC driver here. We provide these ODBC drivers. We provide JDBC drivers. We have also other interfaces such as Python and Node.js and other ways to get to the data, as Shane showed you earlier. This is the easiest one. Bring over my configuration and we'll see it's set for port 6603 on my remote box. Here's my box. Here's my database name. And we'll hit enter here. We're going to go ahead and remove that. We're going to come in under data. We're going to do from other sources or use a connection wizard. Come in for ODBC. Pick that driver. It's going to pick up that table. We're going to say yes for that venfill table. And finish and add that right there. So there's that same data right here in ODBC. Now, one of the things I do want to point out is that not only is this a SQL access to this data, but this is a concurrent access. I can update this data in SQL. We can change this address, for instance, right here. We'll change her to 520. She moved to the office down the hall. We'll come back over here. You can see the original was in 518. But if we exit out of there and come back in, you'll see that we moved her to 520. And we can actually do the same thing. We can write the live application data right back out of the app into the SQL. It's two-way read-write access. Under SQL, you also have the full advantages of putting views, stored procedures, triggers on your tables from the SQL layer. You can lock information out through security. Again, with the c-tree comp from the driver side, you can control security and access to tables much more advanced than you have today in your standalone runtime applications. So that's just a quick peek at how easy it is to do a single table. Of course, you could do all the tables, some of the tables, and I do want to point out too that RTG only handles COBOL indexed files. So sequential and relative files stay as they are. You don't have to deal with those at all. Those are very basic file layouts. So we only deal with the indexed files. But we will handle any of the indexes and data types that COBOL can throw at us and map all that up to the SQL layer, as you can see here. So happy to take any questions you have at this point. Feel free to share them in the chat window if you wish.